Rite of Passage, the podcast with Giabra Martin.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the episode. We are here today with Britt Roth, author of the Hollywood Psycho series. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, very well. I was just looking at your bio ahead of this, so I see that you're in California. How close
Yes.
are you to the fires?
I'm about 40 miles away.
Okay, so got
Um,
enough distance.
yeah, from like the big one, like in the Palisades, I'm about 40
Right.
miles away. There was one, the Sunset Fire, which was in the Hollywood Hills, so I'm like about 27 miles away from that. But we really, it was really strange because it was
Mhm.
windy, but the ash and the smoke didn't blow this way. So
Okay.
we were fine.
See, that's one thing. I've been in a couple wildfires, like in like central Washington.
Hmm.
And people like wouldn't believe the smoke. I mean, it's like hazy.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of unbelievable, even if you're like anywhere near it, depending on which way the wind is going, right? So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So friends and family ever, your immediate people all doing okay?
Yeah, I have friends and family in LA. They were all fine. So,
Nice. Okay.
yeah, thankfully.
No, for sure. It's a scary thing for sure.
Oh,
That was
definitely.
kind of a wild thing, but hopefully we get some rain and starts to settle down here soon. So.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, it's been a really dry year this year. So
Right.
it's kind of strange.
Yeah, and I know like I've heard like the winter months are kind of essential. Like that's how it is at
Mhm.
least in Washington State is like how much snow they get is going to
Right.
determine like what the wildfire season is going to look like. But
Hmm.
it's usually like late summer, so like having it in December, January is a bit odd, right? It's not even that hot out, but it's just so damn dry.
Yeah. Well, we get like fires all the time just because we are so dry. So they
Right.
happen, we don't really have like a season anymore. It just is year round. It can happen whenever.
Right, and the weather's nice all the time, so it's like, it's warm enough for something to get going.
Right.
Oh, scary stuff for sure. And it's
Yeah.
crazy that can happen in the most expensive real
Hmm.
estate in the country, right?
Oh, yeah.
I
It
mean,
was, yeah, it's just like you look at the images on the news and it's just these beautiful neighborhoods are just completely gone.
just unbelievable. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
some of the biggest, most expensive houses in the country. So,
Hmm.
and I've heard like, yeah, the fire insurance, a lot of the insurance companies bailed.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, the risk is way too high. It's kind of like
Right.
hurricane insurance. It's like we're losing a lot of money on,
Hmm.
we're not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
Uh,
Even like car insurance companies they're like leaving California. They've been doing that over the past couple of years. All of these
no kidding.
insurance companies are just pulling out and it's not really, you know,
Yeah, not leaving
especially like when
people.
something like this happens, it's
It's just going to get
not
worse, right? And they're like, but I mean,
right.
insurance companies, they make a lot of money, but they don't
Hmm.
like losing money. And maybe California is a place they're currently losing money. But
Hmm.
anyway, we're not going to spend too much time on I had to ask for sure, but I'm very interested in your book. So, Hollywood
Oh,
Psycho, it's part of a three-part series, and it looks like your two
yeah.
books are out there already. Are you working on the third?
So the third one that I'm going to release sometime within the next couple of months is kind of like a little sidestep. It's called Hollywood After the Psycho, and it's the continuation to the first book, which is Hollywood Psycho, the Julie Simon story.
Yeah.
But the third book in the trilogy is called Hollywood Psycho, the Michaela Barstow story.
Hmm.
I'm writing it. It's kind of, I know exactly how I want the story to go. I know how I want it to happen. Just executing it is not going how I want it
Bit of a
to.
puzzle for sure.
Yes. So I'm taking a little bit of a pause on writing it, and I'm
Okay.
actually editing a contemporary romance that I wrote a few years ago,
Interesting.
editing that, and I'm going to release that just to give me kind of like a little bit of a break and like have my brain thinking a little bit differently, and then
Right,
I'm going to jump
right.
back into the third book.
That's an interesting thing. I mean, your reviews are stunning for the first two. So I imagine like in
Oh,
your
yeah.
mind you've set like a very high bar and you're like, like the third book is probably stressful. 'Cause you're like, damn, like I already made like big shoes I gotta fill, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I don't look at my reviews, so I don't know what they are.
you
I
don't look
like,
at your reviews?
no, I read one once that hurt my feelings, and I was like, well, these aren't for me, so
A
I
quick
don't
story.
look at them.
A quick story, and then I won't talk too much about my own books. But I had one review, and like all the characters an author develops, like you have to understand them, right? So they're based on you and your friends, people you know.
Right.
And like this lady was like, "Oh, I love the book, but I couldn't stand the main character." And I was like, "I based him on me." I'm like, like, I just like want to hide in my hole. I'm like, "That's not
Oh,
so."
we wouldn't be friends. Like,
I was like, I just couldn't stand him, couldn't relate. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, yeah, me either. But anyway, anyway, what inspired you to start with this series?
Oh, so I was in college when I came up with the idea for the Julie Simon story.
Okay.
I was taking a class for my minor, which is radio, TV, film, and it was a film class. So we had to watch movies and kind of talk about them. It was a really
Right.
fun, easy class.
Sounds
And
cool.
yeah, our semester project was to write a film treatment, which is every movie has one of them. They're like 30 pages long. They tell exactly what's going to happen. No dialogue, just exactly what's going to happen in the movie. And
Interesting.
we had to write like a 5-page one. And so this was the idea that I came up with. I was like, you know what? This is a movie that I would like to watch.
Okay.
I got the idea from a couple of movies that I like. And then after I graduated college, I was working as a nanny and I couldn't stop thinking about this story, like thinking like, oh, this would be such a cool movie. Could I
Right.
write this, like write a script? But I was like, I don't know. I don't really want to do that. And then I just one day was like, you know what? I'm going to give my characters a voice and I'm going to write a book. And so
Okay.
then I started writing it. So
Interesting.
yeah.
So you didn't like, because some of these authors I mean, it's like, oh, I knew since I was 5 years old I wanted to be a writer. And yours was like, I had a project and it kind of connected, and then the story was like,
Right, yeah. Because
yeah,
I've always loved writing. Like when we would
right,
have like
right.
a pop essay, like in high school, I was like, yes,
Like
like
ready.
just
Yeah.
love doing that. I've written short stories. For years. I've just been like writing stories, but I never really thought that I could go on to do that or if that's like something that I wanted to do. I just didn't
Right.
really think about being an author. And then all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I'm going to be an author. And so
Oh,
then
damn it,
I
I'm doing it.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, I just went and did it. And
No,
now there's no turning back. That's what I want to do.
I absolutely love that. So right now you're sidestepping away from the trilogy,
Right.
working on a different thing entirely. Was that like an idea that came to you while you're writing one of the books? Or was like, I have this other story that's been on my mind, and like, how did that come about?
Okay. So it took me years to kind of write Hollywood Psycho, the Julie Simon story. It was on and off. And because at one point I was like, okay, I'm just going to write a book, but then I didn't really take it seriously into thinking that I would publish it
Okay.
for up until I think it was like 2020 when I was like, you know what, I'm really going to go through with this.
Yeah, yeah.
So during that time, I was like writing it on and off. And then, hold on, let me backtrack a little bit
Sure,
here.
sure, sure.
So I finished writing it and I did start sending it out to literary agents.
Mhm.
And then my husband and I were expecting our daughter and I was too sick to look at any type of screen. So
Right.
then I kind of put it on a standstill and then when she was born started working on it again
Mhm.
and then we got pregnant with our son. And so again, too sick to look at any screen, so I put it on the back burner and so he was born in early March of 2020.
Okay.
And then after he was born, I was like, you know what? I have to do something to like make them proud of me. I have to do something for them to show them that their mom's awesome and I'm a cool mom. So,
Right, right. And also that they
so I
can
was
that they
like,
can chase a dream, right? I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And so that's when I really wanted to pursue it. And then I thought I was done writing it. And then one day, I had, I had just watched The Summer I Turned Pretty, that first season after it came out.
Mm.
And then the idea for this story, this contemporary romance, just came into my mind. And I just
Mhm.
started writing it. And that helped me get out of any postpartum depression that I was in, postpartum
Wow.
anxiety. It was just something I was able to kind of throw myself into that was for myself. And
Right,
so that's
right.
how that story came about. It was completely different than like the Hollywood Psycho because I had already planned what the second book was going to be
Mhm.
like. I hadn't started writing it yet, and so then I wrote this contemporary romance, and that kind of just triggered something. And then I wrote the second book for Hollywood Psycho,
Very
which is the
cool.
Luke Townsend story. So that's how that kind of like came about.
Yeah, there's a whole lot to unpack there. I do want to
Hmm.
say in terms of the postpartum thing, just on a sidestep, like,
Yeah.
my wife had a similar thing, right? And
Hmm.
a lot of women have a lot of trouble talking about it because like you have this
Right.
child and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and you also want to like tell people like, hey, it's going very
Hmm.
well. But I mean, like being pregnant hijacks a woman's body, and your
Oh yeah.
hormones, everything is different, everything's all over the place. And for any, and there's a lot to unpack in that. So first of all, for all the ladies listening to this, it is okay, and you're not
Yes.
alone. But writing
Definitely.
is a beautiful art form to process because like
Mm,
you could take your own story, like something you're working through, and you could turn it into like a fantasy, like almost, you
right.
give your own emotions these characters, right? And you kind of work through your own stuff, and something about that becomes very relatable. That's very powerful
Mhm.
art, and it does
Yeah.
exactly what good fiction should do, for sure.
Right. It was very therapeutic
Right.
just writing it. And with that contemporary romance,
Mm.
because I couldn't just sit down in front of my laptop and write
Mhm.
because I had two babies to take care of. They're 15 months apart. So, they were
Yeah.
both babies. And so I literally would just carry a notebook and a pen with me. And if I got like an idea, I would just write it out. And it was the best form of therapy to help me get out of that postpartum
That's
like
amazing.
time. Yeah.
That's
So,
something I'm learning too is like even just like the journaling, like if
mhm.
you put your thoughts on paper, it's almost like you don't have to carry them anymore. Like,
Yeah, there's something about just a pen to paper that's
right,
just it helps like relieve any type of like stress that I have. I just write
right.
it out and then it's gone.
No, and even because like writing is like typing, I can type like
Mhm.
the wind,
Mhm.
but writing, it's like I have to go slow, think
Right.
about
You
it.
have to
It's almost like
kind of
it
think about it.
slows down your anxious, scattered brain.
Yes.
We're gonna slow down and dial in here. It's amazing for sure. So back to your books, what do the first two books, do they have any common thread or just maybe just the general setting and that they're in Hollywood or same characters?
Yeah, so they all have different characters.
Mhm.
So they're different characters, a different type of crime that happens, but it's a little bit similar, but a different crime that happens.
Hmm.
But what connects them is that they take place in the same vicinity, like the Hollywood, Los Angeles area. And then
Right.
there's like the one person who is kind of like the crazy psycho person. So like they're
Yeah.
the Hollywood psycho. So that's how they are kind of connected. It's just kind of they take place in the same area.
No,
Yeah.
there's, yeah, and I mean, that's a real thing, right? Like what, like even like I wrote a short story once about like a neighborhood I grew up in and just,
Hmm.
it was about like the opioid crisis and the fentanyl crisis. And it's like so many homes in the same subdivision can have
Right.
so many stories.
Oh, exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, one
Yeah.
neighborhood can have so many secrets, right? Like,
Hmm. Oh, for sure.
unbelievable. Tell me about the first one. Tell me about the Julie Simon story.
Okay, so Julie is, well, that book takes place in 1993. She is a young, early 20s young woman. She
Mhm.
moves from Missouri to Los Angeles to pursue her dream. She loses her parents when she's very young, so she's raised by her grandmother.
Mhm.
And then when her grandmother passes, she finally is like, you know what, I'm going to go out and live my dreams. I've always wanted to be an actress, so that's what I'm going to do. So she moves to Los Angeles. She's not really having good luck. It's hard to break out into that industry. And
Right.
then she goes to an audition. She gets this opportunity to audition for a big time director. She completely bombs, but when she walks out, there's this like beautiful like woman that she's like, taken back from. She's like, oh my goodness, who is that? And then this woman comes up and approaches her and introduces herself and kind of takes her under her wing. And that happens to be Roxy Harrington, who's the daughter of the famous director.
Mhm.
And then, so these two girls, they become fast friends. Julie's introduced to Roxy's friends. There are these three guys, Chad, Sebastian, and then Dalton.
Mhm.
And Julie is just smitten by Dalton. She's like, oh my goodness, like, who is this guy? And then, yeah, so from there, Roxy's not a nice girl. And she, tries to do things to Julie. She has this plan in mind that you don't find out until later
Okay.
what it is exactly. But throughout the story, you just feel so bad for Julie for trusting these people that should not be trusted.
Mm.
And just bad things keep happening to her. And in the end, pardon me, ultimately, she's framed for something that she did not do. And
Whoa.
so, yeah, so that's Julie's story.
Damn, I'm into that. The thing is, I'm sure that that story has happened at least once. Like I have
Oh,
a bunch of, I went to a pretty good high school. Like
mhm.
they did well, and there was some kids in the school who had some money, but a lot of kids
Right.
after high school went to California for that reason. Like I'm
Mhm.
going to go to Hollywood, I'm going to be an actress, this and that.
Yeah.
And then they end up at like California Pizza Kitchen. Shout out to California Pizza Kitchen. But I imagine there are people who are like like the con artists, the
Oh,
cult people, the
yeah.
scammers, like waiting to exploit those. Like you're here by yourself, you don't have your
Right.
family.
Like these naive kind of like
Right.
young kids that just
You're a
have this
dreamer.
dream. Yeah.
Yeah. I guarantee your story's probably a little too true, even though it's a fiction. I'm sure it's happened at least once.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Somebody once, like a beta reader told me, she's like, I feel like I'm reading a real story, like this actually happened. And I was like,
Right. It's like
very well
believable.
could have happened.
Might have. So tell me about the second one then. Your first elevator pitch was great. Now we gotta talk about the Luke Townsend story. I got
Okay, so yeah, Luke, it's a girl. I know it's kind of like confusing because her name's Luke. It's not a typical female name,
okay.
but it explains like where she got her name from in the book.
Hmm.
But she it takes place in like the present, and she is a socialite, so she is already like in the limelight. Her
Hmm.
parents are famous artists, and then they turned like art curators who put on like these big shows. So she's been around famous people her whole life,
Okay.
and people like know who she is. So she's this socialite,
Okay.
and she had fallen in love at a young age with a young guy from LA, and she they get pregnant, and then so she has like he's the first love of her life, she and then the baby's the second love of her life, but they lose the baby, and
Oh.
then the guy leaves, so she lost like the two loves of her life. And so all she longs for after that is she just wants to be normal, and she wants to have a normal life.
Right.
And she puts on this, like this whole facade for the media that she's like this party girl, always like at a new club every weekend,
Hmm.
and but that's not who she is. And so she just would rather be sitting home like reading a book, but even her friends don't know that about her. So one day they're like at a club, and she notices this like handsome stranger staring at her, and she's like, who is that? And
Yeah.
her friends are like, no, you are Luke. Like Luke Townsend does not go up to people. Like a guy would come up to you. And
Yeah.
so she's like, okay, whatever. And then she starts noticing this guy everywhere that they go. And so finally they have this like encounter where they bump into each other. And she's
Right.
just like, this is the guy that's going to give me my normal. And so her friends and her family, her parents, they don't really trust him. And they're kind of like, I don't think this is the guy for you.
Hmm.
But she's so adamant about him being the one that's going to give her this life that she wants.
Yeah.
And then some things like happen, like the parents are trying to stop them from getting married when they go and elope, and then that kind of triggers something in him, and
Mm.
he is not the man that she fell in love with. He completely changes, and some things happen. A big thing happens actually, and Luke is left like, trying to save her own life from this guy. And
Whoa.
so, but all while trying to like bring justice onto like what happened to, like what he did to the people in her life. I don't want to give it away.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
So yeah.
spoilers, but damn.
Yes.
I'm very intrigued. As you're talking, I am nearly 100% certain that both of these books will eventually become movies.
Oh, I
Like,
hope.
they fit the criteria, and I'll tell you what I mean in terms of, and I don't know anything, right? Like I live in Nashville. We don't make movies here. We got a lot of music. Um,
Yeah, a lot of music. Yeah.
okay, the pitch is amazing. They're very compelling. That psychological thriller kind of stuff connects. People
Hmm.
love that. They eat it up. But also, like, to turn it into a movie, it doesn't require any special effects, or at least very minimal. Like,
Right.
this movie could be made without an enormous budget, just some quality actors that really bring you
Mm.
into it. And then even like your proximity, just where you live, like I have no doubt these will be made into movies, and they'll be kick-ass movies too.
Thank you.
I'm stoked to watch them when they come out because I'm gonna be busy. I'm gonna have the popcorn. My wife's gonna have the red wine. We're gonna dig it. It's gonna be awesome. No, I love that. I love everything you're describing, and I'm like, damn. And
Oh, thank you.
you have a very interesting brain. I gotta tell you.
Thank you.
No, I'm like very intrigued by these books. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
I know my husband's always like, "Who the bleep did I marry?" And I'm like,
Like, oh, who's
I don't
who's
know.
in there, right? Like, I don't know. We're finding out every time I write a book. Oh, okay, so the third one, you said that it is okay, gonna be out in a couple months. Is it basically like you have editors looking at it, or you're just kind of going through different drafts now?
Yeah, well, the one that's going to be coming out is the continuation to Julie's story. It's
Okay.
called, yeah, Hollywood After the Psycho. Because a
Ooh,
few readers they asked like, what happens to Julie after everything happened? And
right.
so I was thinking about it, and I had originally written out like a script that I was going to film, like as an
Yeah.
interview,
Okay.
because that whole book, you find out at the like towards the end, that the whole thing was her being interviewed and her telling the story of what happened. So
Oh,
yeah, so I had written a script of like, like her being interviewed 30 years later. So 30 years after everything that took place in that
on the
book.
other side of
And
it.
so, yeah, so then I was like, I don't know, like there seems like there could be more. And
Mhm.
so then one day I was like, you know what? I think this is going to be a book. And so then I started writing it, and it's a dual perspective. So you get Julie's perspective 30 years later,
Mhm.
and then you also get Dalton's perspective 4 years after everything happened.
Mm.
So I don't know. I can't really like, I
Yeah, you
guess
can't give
it
too
would
many
be like a
spoilers
spoiler
away.
if I say like what it's about, but
Wow.
it's fun, I think, because of like what it's about. It's like Julie kind of describing like things that happened throughout that like 30 years,
Right.
but it happened like at a very specific time,
Mm.
and Dalton is involved in that, so
Ooh.
it's yeah.
I'm into that. I'm so is that the sidestep project? Like not necessarily the third in the series, but it's
Right,
what does
that's
happen to Julie? And then you're like, you get inspired.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the third one to complete the trilogy, the Michaela Barstow story, that one is going to be like really fun. I'll just say that there's like uh oh, what's it called? A parasocial, like a relationship type thing. So where
Mm.
somebody's so fixated on like a celebrity and thinks that they're actually in this relationship, but it's like non-existent.
Ooh, okay. So it's like kind of the stalker thing or like the
Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
distorted reality type stuff.
right. So
Um,
that's going to be like the third book to complete the trilogy.
right. I encountered a stalker one time and it is so interesting how the
Hmm.
mind works.
Right?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, fascinating. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, you're getting me all hyped up. I'm thinking about everything I ever knew about it. I'm like, you know what? I'd love to write a crime thriller too. I don't know. There's just
Oh,
something
you
so
should.
fun about like extreme personalities, like crazy
Hmm.
minds, the whole psychological twists and
Oh,
turns.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's like so much fun.
You should write a crime thriller. That would be fun.
I don't know. I got, well, I might. I don't know. You're like planting a seed here. I'm like, maybe I need to sidestep, mix
Just
it up.
jot down the ideas, and then one day, maybe.
I had one, and I'm gonna leave a spoiler here, and because I was thinking about, I haven't written it yet, and maybe someone who's a really good author will steal this from me watching this podcast. But I'm a legal proofreader outside of like that's my day job. I have a legal proofreading
Oh,
business.
cool.
And I was reading one about a gal who became like basically a private investigator.
Hmm.
And most of what they do is like look for insurance fraud.
Right.
Right, but I was like, what if she was investigating these people and she realized, like, hey, most of the people I'm investigating are men, most of them are insurance fraud, but there's also been a dozen women, but like, what are the odds that nine of them would have green eyes?
Hmm.
And it's called, and nine had green eyes. And she finds out that, like, mixed in with her normal work, her boss has her investigating some people who has nothing to do with insurance fraud. And then she starts investigating him. He's
Oh.
also very good at this. And then she comes into this kind of mystery and conspiracy and
Oh,
realize,
that sounds good. You
yeah, and
should
I was
write
like, oh
that.
shit. And the title and nine had green eyes, and I was like, ooh. I was like, but I have a 1-year-old son too, so I'm like finding 5 minutes a day to write. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, get up at 5 a.m. and hope, yeah. So the writing's been rather slow lately. I will.
Yeah.
So your kids, they're 15 months apart. They're like 3 and 4 now.
Oh no, they're my daughter just turned 6 in
Okay.
December, and then my son is gonna be 5 in March.
Okay, very cool.
So yeah, so it's been like a process. I released Hollywood Psycho, the Julie Simon story in
Yeah,
2023,
right.
and then Luke's story was this past August in 2024.
Okay. I will say
Yeah.
one of these things that's tricky as an author is like, okay, when you're young, you've got time, but you don't have the experience to write a good book.
Right.
When you're a little older, it's like I got experience, I got ideas, I got perspective, but
Mhm.
I have kids, I have a family, I have a
Yeah.
career. So when do you write? Like, how do you carve out that time?
I just try to well, like right now I am a stay-at-home mom
Mhm.
currently. So during the day is when I try to get as much done for my books.
Right, right.
But when I was working, it was just if an idea came, I would kind of like jot it down. And then after the kids went to bed, just kind of, maybe take like 30 minutes to, kind of come up with something. So
Right, right.
just,
You're kind of
yeah,
a
just
late night
whenever I
writer.
can. Yeah.
Yeah, because some of the people I've spoken with, some of the authors, it's like 5 a.m. It's like that window before the first text, email, any of this.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not a morning person.
Some people, it's the late at night, everyone's in bed, the house is
Yeah.
quiet, but I love the idea of like just no matter where you go, you have a pen, you have a notebook.
Hmm.
Because sometimes I try to do it on my phone and then autocorrect, and I'm like, it's just like gibberish. I was like, what
Right.
is this gibberish that was
If it's on my phone, I forget about it.
right, right.
I don't like to be on my phone. It's
Hmm,
like, which is probably not the best for like, marketing as an indie author, but like
right.
sometimes I'm like, oh, I have to, promote myself. I have to go on TikTok. I have to go on, Instagram and whatever the new ones that I'm going to be on soon. I have to figure out how to use those.
Yeah,
Um, but so I like to have like a pen and paper with me just so that I can even just kind of like bullet point something and
right,
then
right.
later it'll like trigger my memory.
Yeah, that's
So
a great idea. And I mean,
mhm.
just having something to write on all the time. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Like you never know
Yeah,
when inspiration is going to come. It's like you're in the car,
exactly.
you're like, you see something in a public place or whatever it may be, and it's like I gotta
Right.
immediately like get this on paper before I forget.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think I might start doing something like that. 'Cause sometimes even you wake up in the middle of the night and you like go to pee or something, but like you just came out of a dream and you're like, oh,
Hmm.
write that down. Like, but I'll remember
Right.
2 hours later. You're like, damn it, I know I had a dream, but
Yeah, you completely forget. Yeah.
yeah,
Especially like with like the, kind of like the not just like mom brain, but like parent brain, because you're thinking about like your kids and like all the
right.
different things like going on in your life. You just kind of I lose the ideas a
You're
lot faster
very,
now.
very divided and spread out. Yeah.
Yes.
So tell me about the romance novel.
Oh, okay. So this one is a love after loss story. So there's this woman, she's 33. She has been with her fiance for 9 years. And then 2.5 months before they're about to get married, he is in a motorcycle accident and he passes.
Mhm.
And so then she's just kind of left like distraught. Like everything that they had planned for their future is just now it's just done
Mm,
because he's not there anymore. And
right.
so then she takes like a year. She's like, depressed. Her best friend is like trying to get her out of it. On the day that should have been their wedding, her
Mhm.
friend just comes and is like, hey, we're going to Vegas. Like, you need to be happy, leave everybody alone. Don't listen to like their fake messages of like sincerity. Like, we're going to Vegas. We're going to have a good time. So then her friend is kind of like bringing her like a little bit back to life, at least trying to. And so then during that year, she starts to fix up. Like they had bought like a little bungalow in LA so that they were trying to like DIY and fix up together. So she's
Mhm.
like YouTubing everything and doing it all herself because she is fortunate to be a freelance like copywriter and
Okay.
she's done well for herself. And
Yeah.
so then after a year and the house is done, she has this idea like, you know what, he would want me to be happy and he would want me to move on. I'm going to start living life again and
Mhm.
doing things that I want to do. And
Yeah.
so then she decides to move across like the country to like a coastal beach city to kind of like live her grandma coastal grandmother vibes.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so she decides to do that. She says, I'm going to give myself a year away from here and the memories here, and I'm just going to rediscover who I am.
Hmm.
So she moves to a beach city. I made one up. I called it Fraser's Beach because I didn't want to have to like have everything accurate. So I made
Okay.
up my own town.
Yeah.
And then so she meets two friends there, and they are they instantly connect. And so she's like, well, I wanted to be alone, but I'm glad that I have people here. And
Mm.
so then she uh starts to she goes out to lunch with her friends, and then she finds out that there's a TV show filming there that summer, and
Mm.
she's like, ugh, great, like my year of peace is like out the window. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be crowded here. And then she's at lunch one day with her friends, and then they see this guy kind of sitting in the corner who's staring at her, and she's feels weird about it because she had been in this long-term relationship,
Mhm.
and she had her future planned out for her, and then she hasn't really been like attracted to somebody else in so long, and so she kind of feels weird about it in the sense that she is attracted to this person. So
Right.
she's like,
Yeah.
can I feel this way? And so
Feel a
then
little guilty. She's been closed
yeah,
off. And you're like,
and,
yeah.
right. Like, is it too soon? It's only been a year. Like,
Right,
and so,
right.
so he leaves, and she's just like, whatever. And then they go to be extras one day on the TV show. And so there's this guy, like they look up, her friend is like, that's why he looked familiar. He's the star of the show, and he's like the
Mm.
Hollywood heartthrob. And so she's like, oh my goodness, like this is crazy. Like he's so cute and stuff like that. And then he starts talking to her, and then she is interested in him, but she just feels guilty, like I can't
Mm.
do this, like to like her fiance that passed, his name is Brian.
Right.
So she's like, I can't do this to Brian, I can't do it to his family. They're gonna hate me, they're gonna judge me. And then she also feels weird because this like heartthrob is like 9 years younger than her. And
No.
so she's like, this is weird, like I can't, it's gross, he's a
Grown, have so
child
many
but he's
lives.
an adult.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so then they're just like kind of building this like relationship, and it just works. And
Mm.
so she's like, this is it's she just keeps saying he's too young, he's too young, he's too young. But I don't know, like she just
Love
they
is
they,
love.
they work so well, and they're like so
Right.
cute together, and they like fit. And then but then something like, they have like their little like what is it? Like a little spat because like she keeps bringing up the age thing, and he's like, hey, it's just a number. Like this is like working here. Like we're good together. And then something else happens where she finds out that he kind of is not telling the truth. But in the
Mm.
end, I'm a happily ever after kind of gal.
Yeah.
So it's going
Yeah.
to end up nice.
Like that. That's kind of when you think of like the plot of like let's say a comedy movie, it's like
Hmm.
things start out they're okay, and then two people meet, maybe a love interest starts coming in and things are improving, but there's
Yeah.
something about it that's fake. There's like something
Hmm.
not being said, or like Wedding
Yeah.
Crashers. It's like, oh, we're not really supposed to be here.
All
And
right.
then everything's got to
Great
fall
movie.
apart to be
Uh-huh.
like rebuilt on a real, honest, genuine foundation. And
Yes.
so that's kind of, but then it ends with
Yeah.
like, you know what, we worked through it, and that's
Yeah.
fun. I
And
enjoy
I
that.
still had to tie in the whole Hollywood thing because
You got
that's
to do it.
just
Like,
this is who I am.
that's where I am. That's who I am. That's, my
Yeah,
immediate surroundings here.
exactly.
Have you always been in the Hollywood area, or where are you originally from?
Well, I'm in Orange County, but like my dad, he lives in like the Los Angeles area by the
Okay.
beach, and so like I grew up, going to his house like every other weekend. We'd like go into LA like to
Yeah.
do things. So and like just when you're like young in your 20s, like you go hang out in LA.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Be on the
yeah,
scene.
yeah,
I've heard
it's
from
just been
people
fun.
that no one in LA is from LA,
No, like
like how it feels.
very rarely.
Yeah, they're like from all over the country, like, and everyone's like chasing a dream, like they're there
Yeah.
to become
Um,
somebody or something. Yeah.
Right. And then before like my husband and I we had kids,
Hmm.
like we would just take a day and like just jump on his motorcycle and just like go drive around and have fun, like end up at different places, and it's just like a fun thing. So
That
it's
sounds
always
kind of
it
cool.
holds like a bunch of memories.
That sounds kind of cool, honestly. I've
Yeah.
never been to LA. I've been to San Diego and it was
Hmm.
lovely. Love San Diego, but yeah, I've been meaning to get out to LA and just kind of check it
Yeah.
out. It's like
And
one of
then
those
you never
places.
know who you're gonna see too, because like we've seen so many just like celebrities, and it's just
Right.
fun.
It's funny. I almost never see him, so it's very awkward when I do. Like the guy who was like the villain in the Cobra Kai and Karate Kid.
Oh
Like the
yeah.
old man with the spiky hair. I saw him in Franklin, Tennessee, and I was like, "Oh my God, you're that guy from the Karate Kid." And I didn't know his name, and he was like, "Yep." He just didn't like it. So I was like,
That's
"Well, the one famous person I meet," and didn't make a good impression. Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh, okay. So, okay, in terms of marketing, TikTok, is that kind of your primary?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is like that's where I I like how it functions. I
Right.
like just everything about it. It just works. It works better than like Instagram for me, but now I'm trying to actively be more on my Instagram and
Right.
then just trying to figure out what I'm gonna do.
You know,
But
that's the puzzle we're all working through. And I still don't know
right.
if TikTok is in or out or if it can be saved or what, but
Right. Yeah. I have like, I don't know, I'm not like worked up about it. I
right,
feel like
right.
if it stays, awesome. But if it goes, that's all right. I'll just
You know,
figure out how to use a different app.
that's the thing. I was trying to make some videos for authors because I'm in a couple author groups on TikTok, and people are a little
Mhm.
bit unraveled because
Right.
TikTok is like the only honest algorithm. You know, like
Yeah.
Instagram, like sometimes they'll send your stuff to 20 people, other times it'll be a couple hundred people.
Hmm.
There's no rhyme or reason to it. But TikTok is at least like, hey, you write books and we have a bunch of readers and like let's connect you
Right.
because readers want authors, authors want readers. Like we'll put you together and in just an honest, organic kind of way.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, people are a little bit unraveled. But for anyone listening, I just discovered one called Clapper. And the name
Okay.
is a little silly, but it behaves the most like TikTok.
Okay.
Yes, and there's a whole bunch of people going over there. So like I just signed up last night and it's like
Hmm.
already pushing my stuff to like hundreds of new people and I'm like
Oh,
this
cool.
feels like TikTok. I'm like this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, one of my friends, Deanna of
Hmm.
Deanna's World, on TikTok, she sent me a Tome, Tome. Is that
Oh,
how
that's the
it's
one to download all your stuff, right?
Yeah, it'll like connect it. I downloaded like I don't know, it like wouldn't really let me download the app this morning because it hasn't like released yet, but I
Right.
was looking into it.
That might be one that
Just
like
like
it's just been crashed by all the creators like going there. They're like, we're not
yeah.
ready for this many people like coming over here doing this right
Hmm.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I did start or I did yeah, start on Lemon 8, but
Hmm.
that's a part of TikTok, so I don't know
Like are they going to
if
be out
TikTok
for?
goes, if that goes too. I don't know. I'm
Right.
just kind of,
Well, I
chugging
I will
along, seeing
say
how it goes.
I appreciate your attitude. First of all, you're very enthusiastic and passionate.
Oh,
And
thank you.
that's cool. A lot of authors they're very introverted, so it's like, it's hard to like because you got to advocate for your book and just be like, no
Right.
one's gonna love your book more than you. So you got to be like, here's my book, and you're just like
Yeah.
stoked about it. So, but our dream should not be contingent on any one thing, like one social
Hmm.
media platform or one seller
Right.
like Amazon. Like, look, the truth is, there's readers who want books, and there's authors who want to write books, and the two
Hmm.
need each other and love each other, and they're gonna look for each other whether TikTok is around or not.
Right.
So your
Exactly.
dream is not going to die with TikTok. It's just maybe a little bit of a hurdle, but when one door closes,
Yeah.
another door opens, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's how I look at it. I don't like to like dwell on it. I don't know. Like I said, I don't really like to like be on my phone all that much. So
right.
if it goes away, I'm like, okay, one less app that I have to
You're like, sure, I got a little more data
open.
on the phone. Yeah, I would
Not
sell
really
my
good
books.
just because I do have to promote myself, but
You
yeah.
got to put it out there. I might literally just go door to door with my books, like a Jehovah's Witness. Like, yeah, do you have a minute to talk about, yeah, truth and evil or whatever it may be?
That's
Um,
funny.
yeah, this has been a lot of fun. We have less than a minute left. I want to make sure anyone watching this they can find you. I will leave your links in the description, but
Oh, thank you.
yeah, anything you want to say about like where to buy the books or where to find you?
I mean, they're on Amazon. My handle is Britt, Britt Roth, underscore author on Instagram or TikTok, or Lemonade. Those are the ones I have now.
Yeah.
And then my website is brittrothauthor.com.